That should be the picture, but it's not. It's just nothing. That's why I don't like the picture should be. Yeah. 10 dots do.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock, so we will commence. We don't usually have the disco fever going on in the background, and I hope we will recure the sound system. Right, first things first. Emergency evacuation procedure. I'm not expecting any fire alarms, but if we do have any problems, hopefully you'll see members of the public an exit to your left, and there's also an exit to my right. Like that. Apologies for absence. Have we got any apologies? No, we have no apologies for our absence. I'll just announce at this point that I intend to move item 14, which is the Sproxton application, a bit further forward on the agenda so that it comes after item 11. So that will be actually the third item that we consider. Oh yeah, sorry, after item 10. Right. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? Yes, Councillor.
I'm not sure exactly, I'm not quite sure how to deal with this one. So it was completely interest up until Christmas, when we sold the site now. It's item 12. So we are under company, but we don't own the site, but the plan there's lots of companies on it. So it's just save confusion. I'd probably just step out of that one, because otherwise it's just
Yeah, that's fine, thanks. Yeah, I'll leave it to that.
just leave it there, because we can't work what to do.
Yeah, okay. Any other declarations of interest from this side? No. Yes, all a whole range of hands. Councillor, please.
I've been offered non-prejudicial treatment.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Yeah, items 9, 14 and 15, non-pecuniary, I've been offered.
Councillor Woodrick.
Thank you, Chair. Item 14, personal non-prejudicial.
Thank you. So,
Exactly the same as that.
yeah, and I declare myself as item 14, so not prejudiced or non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary.
And I think we've all been covered on 14.
Yeah.
What I can see anyway,
Right. Okay, thanks. Councillor Andrews.
I'm a member of the Milton Town Council Chair, so I have
Okay, thanks. Just while we get to the microphone.
I think I must have done the same.
Yeah, Councillor Backwards. Right, I think that's everybody. So the minutes of the last meeting on 31st of January, I have no problem with those, so I'll move those from the floor. Secondly, thank you. Any problems with the minutes? my take on passed by general automation. Yes, I'm pinpointing notes there. Thank you. Item 5, urgent business. I have no items of urgent business, so we'll move on to the business of the day with item 6. Welcome your neighbourhood area designation.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Yes, this is a very short report regarding the authority to delegate Welburn Brackets York neighbourhood area once the prescribed period of applications concluded. Actually, the minimum consultation period is close to ending, and then we hope to be in a position to designate this neighbourhood plan area once that 4-week consultation period is finished. And it's our intention to bring this back for you to note and at the next planning committee. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I might just add that this is only before us because we haven't got any PNRs left to put this to. So clearly we'll have to do it to this committee. I'll note that the recommendation is that officers are given delegated authority to designate the Welburn York neighbourhood area after the consultation period has ended. So I will move that from the chair. Does anybody want to second that? Yeah, Councillor Woodward. Thank you. And anybody want to speak?
Just briefly, Chairman, it is my division at North Yorkshire on the legal authority and my ward, well, no, it's not my ward, it's your ward, it is something that we've been encouraging all our parish councils to consider, is that they have a neighbourhood plan going forward for specifically so that they know what they want to happen in their area, and then that feeds into the planning situation for each area. So I'm very happy to support.
Right, thank you. Yes, Councillor Mason.
Yeah, I want to echo what Caroline said, but I don't need to take it further. We put some note out to people to remind them to get on with the plan. We need to get some level of perception into local areas now and try out.
Yeah, and that's probably particularly apt, seeing as there are a couple of very big proposals coming from local landowners that's going to affect quite a few villages and districts. Right, anybody else wish to speak on that? Seeing no hands. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can we go to the vote, please? Right, thank you. That is unanimous. So we will move on to item 7, the Malton Northern Neighbourhood Plan consultation, and back to Rachel again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report concerns response to the revised pre-submission consultation on the Malton Neighbourhood Plan. There are specific changes which have been made since the last Regulation 14 consultation was brought before members, and at that point it was policy and resources. In reading the report, members will note that there are a series of changes. Most of those changes in the officers do not present issues with compliance in relation to what are known as basic conditions tests. But one specific change, which is in relation to the inclusion of Ramsden North of Castle Road, referred to as High Malton, is not considered to be compliant with national policy tests on the designation of local green space. And this would be in officers who are failure to meet the basic conditions test. It is important that any matters of concern are expressed during the consultation so that the local planning authority can ensure this is considered throughout the process and maybe expressed further during the examination if it progresses at that stage. That will be following a consultation that North Yorkshire Council will undertake, and that's representations at that stage. So the recommendation as in the report, although I would just like to note that the paragraph numbers should read 6.6 to 6.16 in the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I'll read the full recommendation out so that we know what we will be voting on. The proposed response from paragraph 6.6 to 6.16 of this report is agreed, and that any further revisions are included by the Planning Services Manager and agreed in consultation with the Chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee and Planning Committee. So, to me, this appears to be a well-reasoned and evidenced response based on the requirements of the NPPF, which is the key bit that I presume is going to be contentious. So, are there any further revisions from members, bearing in mind that this isn't really the time for extensive debate on the merits or otherwise of this response? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Chairman, I have a question. We're referring to the piece of land that Rachel was talking about, which I call I-40. This was the subject of a planning application, which the council refused on the basis of officers' recommendations a few years ago. It's been promoted by this real estate. It's a local plan submission. When we get to the inquiry before the arbitrator, we'll be looking at the medical plan. He will be facing the full force of the Richmond Estates legal and technical representation. Why is it necessary in these circumstances for the council to take sides? Because that is what they are doing. And I make the point that we have been advised, Walton Town Council has been advised by professional experts that this designation does not conflict with local or national policy. Can't conflict with local policy because the confusion from places where we have already. But it can't conflict with national policy. And therefore, the argument is simply going to be a question between experts. Why does this council have to take sides and make it more difficult for the town council?
Thank you. It's important for the local planning authority to set out matters that it has a role in supporting and advising in the neighbourhood plan process, because ultimately the neighbourhood plan is adopted by the local planning authority. In response to the references with regards to the planning application, in the report it talks about the fact that yes, there was extremely strong support for refusing the planning application. There was an awful lot of representations made in terms of objections to that proposal, but they themselves do not justify demonstrable significance with regards to being of important community value in relation to that area of land. The report seeks to set out in effect what it considers to be sort of key matters with regards to the parcel of land in question, and in terms of evaluating that, it's not seen to be demonstrably special, and therefore it's important at this stage that the local planning authority make these representations to the qualifying body. It's up to the qualifying body what they wish to do. They can continue down this route and continue with this designation, and the representations, will be discussed and considered at the examination. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that we feel that it doesn't meet the definitions that are set out in national planning policy, and that does need to be raised with the qualifying body at this point in time, because in terms of the consultation process, when we reach regulation 16, that's where the local planning authority consults on the neighbourhood plan at it's not going to come to them as a surprise later down the process when we will have to make further representations, particularly at a point of examination.
Right, councillor Rick.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask the officers, how much effect will this have on the overall plan? The last thing I want for not to that plan gets to examination and it fails because of this problem that we've got with this time of this year. Do you think that in order to get this plan accepted, that the plan by the planning perspective and adopted, this change needs to be as implemented?
Well, we've set out here that we think it would raise a significant issue. That will ultimately be decided by the independent examiner when they examine the neighbourhood plan at some point in the future. That being said, it's likely that if it was retained and if the examiner had concerns with it, they could actually seek to have it removed. And so that is also an option that can happen. It doesn't mean then that the plan effectively stalls. It can then be continued through the process for effectively referendum and adoption.
Right, councillor.
Yes, I wasn't a member when the Hamilton application came before council, but I was involved and I was interested. And if my memory serves me correctly, one of the reasons for refusing this application was the impact on the air quality in Malton and quality management area. And just for the record, I would suggest, are you contradicting that?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, I've got a vague memory, strong enough to remember because I've got submissions myself.
I don't believe it falls on the
Well, it was most definitely creative. Anyway, I'll just say that there is a very strong possibility that if volume house building in that location were to come before a planning committee in the future, it would be very, very difficult to argue in favour of such a development that would have such a negative impact on the air quality. We're already facing two trains coming down the same line, facing one another. We have 672 houses in Norton versus the proposed highways changes in Malton that are bringing on the proverbial storm in terms of air quality impact. The more times I can say this in public, the happier I become. Thank you.
Looking delirious. Right, I just have a brief question in 6.2 where it says the plan is designed to cover the period to 2027. I've just seen like quite a short time frame to me, so if you could just explain that, please.
Yes, I think really the time frame for the plan is the fact that the intent was to have the neighbourhood plan as part of the development plan alongside the write-up and local plan strategy, which was adopted in 2013 and has a plan period of 2012 to 2027. That being said, should the neighbourhood plan progress through the examination process, referendum be adopted, it will form part of the development plan, and it will do so, and alongside the write-up plan until such time it is superseded either by a new neighbourhood plan or a new development plan that's adopted from effectively North Yorkshire Council. In the meantime, like the write-up plan, if there are material considerations that would indicate that taking a decision that is contrary to the development plan, that can also take place if there are material considerations of significant weight.
Right, thank you, Rachel. I'm not seeing any more comments, so I'm happy to move that recommendation from the chair. Yeah, councillor Andrews. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to second it. Yeah, councillor.
Well, Chair, I have to say, I cannot vote against this. I'm not satisfied with the opposite answer to the question. There is clearly an arguable case that this land should be publicly known. This is the democratic wish of the Northern residents who had a campaign on the study issue, election campaign on the study issue, to make sure this land was protected. The council, are making a planning refusal, has decided that that land, that having no government on that land is in fact consistent with the local plan. And in those circumstances, Chair, by this council simply taking the side of the Fitzwilliam Norton Estate, exactly what it is doing, this council is putting the residents of Norton at a disadvantage. It is disregarding democracy, it is disregarding the local parish council, and quite honestly, I am absolutely appalled. And I should be voting yes. I would ask all members to vote with me, just vote to refuse this. And to make one point, this council does not have the right to stop this plan going forward. The plan will go forward anyway, but it would help. It would help Malton Town Council if this particular part of the response was redrafted so that our council can be entirely neutral on this issue, which is what it should be. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mason.
I think I'm going to vote for this one, because I've just been going back through the reason why it's cited for reviews on air pollution was one, but I mean, we're now 8 years down the line, and it's even more of a concern thing for them. So I think I will go for this one. I think air pollution and impacts seem to be more prevalent now than they were 8 years ago.
Just to clarify, my letter to the head of planning was on the 2nd of September 2015, citing the impact on air quality, national planning policy framework, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on this? No, right, okay, well, it's been moved and seconded, so we'll go to the vote. That is 5 votes for and 3 votes against. So that's recommendations. Okay, we move to the schedule of items to be determined by the committee, which is on page 36 to 38. And the first one is item 9, land south of Malton Grange, Country Park and Willoughby Lane, Malton, which is 9300656 League 4. No, we're moving 14 to after 10. All right. Oh, so is it back to you again?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So yes, members will be very much aware that this particular planning application is back with you for consideration. The Environment Agency have now confirmed that the risk assessment is satisfactory, and if the application is approved, they would seek an evacuation plan to be conditioned. When the application was being considered by members of the last planning committee, flood risk was queried by members in terms of the key differences between the two forms of maps that are available on the government website with regards to flood risk mapping. And the first one, which is effectively deals with long-term flood risk, and it deals with the probability of it, and that has defences factored in. The second map, which we use in planning purposes to undertake what's known as a sequential test and the exception test. That is on the website, and they're called flood risk planning maps. And it covers flood risk in relation to the rivers and sea. And what it crucially does is it does not factor in defences. So the view of the Environment Agency confirms that only the second arm of the exception test is satisfied. And members both parts need to be satisfied. The first arm of the exception test requires that a proposal in flood zone 3 in a more vulnerable use must demonstrate wider sustainability benefits in order to effectively pass the sequential test. And the exception test. And I say that because it has to be around exceptional circumstances to warrant the grant of planning permission in this instance. When officers do not consider that the proposal is capable of delivering those wider sustainability benefits, but that is a judgment for all members to make tonight. The recommendation is of one refusal. But if members are minded to approve the application, then all previously discussed conditions and the flood evacuation plan would need to be additioned. But the recommendation remains on refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Have you got any questions on this? Yes, Councillor.
Well, this is sort of a question. My main question, overarching question, is why the LTA chooses to use flood maps and planning, which are about as useful as anything in capital literature. We approved a very large addition to a caravan holiday park in the not too distant future, where it was, I think Council Potter might know what's coming here, where we approved a further 127 static caravans in flood zone 3. And what was suggested was that by the Environment Agency, in fact, which is their standard recommendation, is that floor levels be cited approximately 600 millimetres above ground level. And one of the council officers here will recall me asking him a question. He says all static caravans are securely tethered to the ground. Concrete slabs on the ground and tethers. I tried to find out how long these tethers were to see how long the leash would be. The caravans would be straining at the leash to get onto the Pickering Road. We didn't find that out. But anyway, so the existing holiday park is largely within flood zone 3 and currently operating according to the flood evacuation and management plan. So that's what I'm talking about, the Pickering approval, which will be carried out over to the extension site. The condition shall be imposed to require the site is operated in accordance with an up-to-date flood evacuation and management plan at all times. Now, frankly, I cannot see the slightest bit of difference apart from this utterly bizarre control mechanism called the sequential test, which strikes me as being a sledgehammer to crack it, if you decide to crack it at that particular moment.
So I think you're coming to a question.
Well, the question is back to the beginning. Why are we using flood risk maps for planning, which are clearly barking mad, when there are far more accurate maps available on the government website? Why are we doing that?
Because it's national planning policy and it's having a national planning practice.
They're wrong. But they're wrong. I'm telling you they're wrong. And we know, but wait a minute. The difference being, you're choosing to ignore anecdotal evidence. You're choosing to ignore people who drive past that site through the water where it does come out onto the road and suggest that all of a sudden we're going back to the alluvial Lake Pickering, when all the flood defences that were heightened in 1948 suddenly disappear. And you suggest that that caravan site is going to be underwater. Well, so it's not right. So, you know, I don't know.
Would you like the officer to answer the question?
Yeah. I think it's pointless. I think the officers have made up their mind. I think they're using the wrong maps. I think this council.
No, you're asking that question. You want the question?
I'd like the flood risk maps and plans to be ceremoniously taken outside and burnt. Thank you.
Right, if you didn't want to answer the question, then don't worry about that. I have a question on the final consultation, January 2023. It says no objections concerning the flood risk assessment from the Environment Agency. Does that mean the Environment Agency don't have an objection to this application?
What it means is that they have established that in terms of the second arm of the exception test, that the proposal has given a compliant flood risk assessment and is evidence that the development can be safe for the lifetime of its operation, not cause increased flood risk on the site, not cause increased flood risk elsewhere. But what the Environment Agency is very clear on is that there are two parts to the exception test, and the first part needs to be undertaken by the local planning authority, and that is considering those wider sustainability benefits. So they make no objections to the flood risk assessment, but they recognise that ultimately the decision to judge whether or not the exception test is passed goes ultimately down to the local planning authority.
Right, thank you. Any more questions? Yeah, Councillor Mason.
Sorry, can you just, okay, can you just give me, what do you actually mean by these sustainable benefits? Because are we talking economically sustainable, or is it nature sustainable? Because it does seem to me we're messing around with some very strange things here. I don't understand why the defensive aren't incorporated. It's just on the sustainable benefits, aren't they? I'm more likely to support the application to go through.
If I can first come back on the defences aspect, the planning flood risk maps specifically do not include defences within those maps because of the risks. If the defences fail, the results can be quite significant, more significant. So that's why there is these two different flood risk maps. In relation to the wider sustainability benefits, well, definition of sustainability is around balancing social, economic, and environmental objectives, and that's a key thread within national planning policy. And in respect of that, each proposal is considered on its own merits with regards to what those wider sustainability benefits may be. And in relation to the application that Councillor Packer mentioned, it's my understanding that that proposal incorporated a number of road improvements to the proposal. So in relation to that, it was considered that it did actually bring wider sustainability benefits to the local community. In this particular application, we are looking at 8 new lodges on site. And in terms of the impacts on the green infrastructure, localised green infrastructure corridor that exists there, it's certainly not disappearing, but it is being diminished. So we feel that in terms of a proposal, it does not bring wider community significant sustainability benefits to the site. If members judge differently, then that's a conclusion for members to come to. But for officers, we judge that this proposal doesn't meet that requirement.
So can we condition the biodiversity benefits?
Well, this proposal actually is borderline in terms of biodiversity net gains. It would require, I think, for the land take, it would require a different approach with regards to the biodiversity consideration, which may or may not be within the gift of the landowner to achieve, the applicant to achieve. So in this respect, it's really for members to consider what is before them tonight, really.
Councillor Cleary.
Thank you. Yes, am I right in thinking that when this came before us before, the report opened by saying it was a balanced decision because of the sequential test and because of the biodiversity potential for loss, and that was before flood risk had been amended.
Yes, the report does. It did reference that in relation to the ecological implications. It was considered to be yes.
That was before,
yes.
That's before the information on planning was provided.
Yes.
Right, any more questions? No, seeing none. Right, we have one speaker on this item, which is the agent Melanie Edwardson.
members, thank you for the opportunity. Sorry,
Yeah, you're on then.
thank you for the opportunity to speak today. You considered and voted to support this application in November last year and recommended deferral in January pending receipt of additional data from the Environment Agency. Hopefully you received our mail shot confirming facts regarding the flood risk. I won't repeat all in detail, but in summary, the EA confirms the site sits in flood risk 3, but significantly, due to its high point and rate of flood, there is less than 0.01% risk of flooding. GGP consults flood risk mitigation measures are acceptable to the EA and they therefore recommend no objection. It is still the case that we submitted this application nearly 4 years ago. It is a small proposal for 8 additional lodges on an existing established park that presents wider sustainability benefits and supports the local economy. The case officer now recommends refusal on flood risk grounds. The application will deliver wider sustainability benefits enough to overcome flood risk, which the EA confirms is not a concern anyway. Since the date of the original submission, the planning department have approved 4 separate applications to expand a holiday park 400 metres away. Schemes for 12, 8, 6 and 4 lodges. All sites were also flood risk zone 3. The schemes gained support and quite rightly as they were good for the local economy and job retention and creation. There's nothing different about this application. It too is small and it's small scale expansion of an existing park. EA confirmed the actual flood risk is negligible, the caravans will be safe and there will be no increase in flooding to others. The wider sustainability benefits endorsed by us include increased economic investment, additional visitors, more local spending which will benefit other businesses, and retaining and creating jobs. Rydal Local Plan advocates that tourism is vital and valuable to Rydal. The EA confirmed there is no technical issue and have withdrawn our objection. We again ask committee for support, please. In doing so, you will enable our clients and their parks to expand in a small way, facilitating consistency and continued positivity towards rural business as times remain challenging. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Okay, we will move to debate, and I think this is yours, Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Still at a loss as to why this is still backwards when we approved this before and then it was deferred and then recommendations went through on flooding and you know, then we have an objection. And that's the question that can we condition, because you mentioned the green, loss of the green areas is part of the problem. Can we condition biodiversity into the application?
It may require a revision of the red outline of the application, which would then mean that we would need a, I think.
That's assuming that you just want to put more trees in there, you can build in biodiversity.
I think it's something that we would have to go back to the applicant with to explore whether or not that's something that they wish to do. They put forward a proposal which sets out what effectively biodiversity benefits they wanted to deliver on the site. So that's what we're considering.
We're saying that that's one of the reasons why we're not going to support this.
Because of the fact that it involves land that is currently providing effectively, it provides landscaping, but we discussed previously when the application was back in 15 November that there would still be sufficient landscaping, you know, with the lodges there, but it does reduce the volume of the corridor that currently exists there, and the applicants are proposing wildflower meadows as a form of compensation and some other elements as part of their ecological mitigation strategy. But essentially, it doesn't actually bring biodiversity net gain as a proposal. It's on balance considered acceptable.
What I'm trying to understand is why we now say no. you could then partly down to the fact that it's going to take some of this green biodiversity away. I don't understand the logic behind that. When we've already approved it,
It's in relation to the fact that you've got two policy considerations. The first is SP14 in relation to biodiversity, and the second is in relation to considering flood risk, and that is around firstly looking at sequentially preferable sites in areas of least flood risk, and then if that's unavoidable to go to the exception test, which is happening in this case, and then to look at what are the wider sustainability benefits of that proposal. In terms of trying to examine what those are, officers feel that it isn't going to be a benefit that this green infrastructure corridor, localised though it is, would be diminished by the proposal. So there are two specific policy considerations.
Okay, I'll introduce you as the base of the main
Right. Anybody else wish to comment on this application? Yes, Councillor Cody.
Yeah, it's actually too easy to sit back saying nothing in support of the officer's recommendation. It's just a very balanced thing, and I'm torn. I'm tempted to say who suffers by this. It's not a new. It's not a blank sheet application for a new holiday park. It's an extension to an existing. And I don't think anybody suffers if we were to accept this, to approve it. I'm sort of thinking a bit old-fashioned that when you're torn if in doubt, go for an enabling view of things and allow it. I'm sort of tending to say if you're really in doubt, allow it because nobody suffers by the permission. And in fact, if you have an extension, a small extension of this existing successful tourism business, if you want me to come see what else the debate goes, if you want me to go back to me for a move of approval, if you go back to the local member, I'm happy to go back to that.
Councillor Wood.
Like my colleague, Councillor Cleary, it's a difficult one. And I'm looking at this and saying, well, where's the risk? And the risk is actually for the operator of the caravan park. And he was making a commercial decision about whether he was prepared to take that risk. If this had been a brick-built property, housing, that we desperately need a floodplain, that'd be great. Actually, we should be doing. But I look at the caravan park at Stamford Bridge, where most of them run on stilts, because it floods regularly there. If he really wants to do this, he puts them on stilts. Councillor Thackeray says he concretes them down and pay it out. Get insurance for it, a whole lot of good, but flood alone, great, I very much note it. But it's his risk, not his council.
Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
just a clarity, I don't think you had the last meeting when we discussed this, the flood maps that we pulled up online showed that this wasn't actually impacting the different ones to be defensive as well. I'm on balance here, I think I'm going to push and recommend. I just think, for me, Darren's point makes a really good point there. The risk is not concrete more than anyone else. I will recommend a treatment with the conditions, preferably biodiversity.
Councillor Cleary.
I'm happy to second that with the conditions that Rachel already mentioned.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Andrews. I'm not sure the risk is with the operator. The risk is with the people who buy the caravans from private sites and to identify the sales which private sites. I know that site. I know the opposite side of my floods tremendously. I'm not unhappy. I accept Councillor Thackeray's points about flood maps and so on. I'm sure we're following a lot of them. And that in the circumstances, I can't disagree with the officer's recommendations. Yeah.
Councillor Baker.
Just my clarification, not to fall out with my fellow councillor, but the other side of the road doesn't flood. Not in that.
All right. Anybody else wishing to speak on this one? Right. Well, yeah, I have to agree that I'm very uneasy about this one, and I've been all along. And I'm not convinced it will stand up to scrutiny if it's refused an appeal. But all the evidence suggests that the officer has diligently and correctly applied the sequential and exception tests, which is exactly what she has to do. Therefore, if it was refused an appeal, it would be up to the Environment Agency to justify their flood zones and their data. Flood risk now and in the future is a significant concern because it's likely to get worse, and it is a big concern with the public. Everybody else, it's a really tightly balanced decision. But on the basis that the exception, they can't pass the exception test according to that data. And looking on page 50, the Leeds Local Flood Authority have confirmed that the application of the sequential test has been undertaken correctly, and the consideration of the exception. We are doing the right thing in trying to refuse this. And on that basis alone, I will back the refusal. But it's been, is anybody else wishing to speak? Yeah, Councillor Backman.
Yeah, I'd just like to bring it back to 21014002, where you approved the additional 127 static caravans on a concrete plinth with a tether of indeterminate length. And if that sort is good for the goods in Pickering, it's surely good for the goods in London. I cannot see the difference. Apart from the fact that I can see the use of the sequential test being a very, very pernicious device for controlling development in Ryde as we go forward.
All right, thank you. Councillor Baker.
Yeah, just for clarity, in going against an officer's recommendation, you don't do it lightly, and I wouldn't want anybody to think that you don't look at an officer's professional and excellent report and think that we discount it. That's absolutely not the case. As members, we have to look at things slightly differently from how a professional planning officer looks at it. We can look at some of the statutory consultees with a different light to how an officer does.
I certainly agree with that, Councillor. Right, I think we've done with that. So the proposal is for approval. So we will go to the vote. Right, so that is 6 votes for and 2 votes against. So that is approved. Thank you. Right, we will move to item 10, which is 19 of League 00772, major outline land off Swinner Lane, Kirby Moorside. Yes, Gary Harrison has moved into the position.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we have detailed reports on the technical side.
series of late pages with conditions on the recommended commission. Having said that, you will have noted from the report that there was a drainage strategy statement that happened in the last 3 weeks, which was consulted on, and that's referred to in the drainage section of the report. To Chase Chairman, we got responses from the legal of the Andrew Ship Water yesterday afternoon. Both of whom are actually raising some further detailed questions in relation to our report and requirements for information. So, although drainage isn't the only issue related to this development, clearly it's a significant issue noted from the comments received. So, I think that really challenges us very much on terms of whether we want to defer the application until we've got our details sorted out. Work's already started on that, Chair. But we appreciate the massive time we did it yesterday. We haven't got a solution yet. So the officer recommendation tonight is that we want to defer. Having said that, members will also be aware of the strength of the comments that we've had over the period of time we dealt with this application. And I think the suggestion here is that we do have a breathing space. There is an opportunity there for the site inspection to be carried out. To remember to get an appreciation of the lie of the land, which is also a consideration here. So that again is also a suggestion for officers that we use the time to avail ourselves of member visit before being in a position to consider the application.
Right, thank you, Gary. Yeah, I think that's an eminently sensible suggestion, so I will move that we defer this item for the site visit. Yes, Councillor Cleary, I presume you're second. Right, okay. Just while we're here, I'll point out that, of course, this is our penultimate planning committee meeting, so we can get a site visit and get this back to committee. But just to point out that if we want a site visit at any of the items next time, we're in a difficult position of proposing it for a certain different committee. So anyway, I have a mover and a seconder for the site visit, so we'll go to the vote. And that is unanimous.
Chair, there are a number of people who express some interest in the site visit to take place to the site towards the end. We will tell people what arrangements would they time after that.
Presumably we have nobody in the room who's desperate for the dates.
We were a couple of people there about the subject.
Right, okay, we'll decide that date at the end of the meeting. Right, that brings us on to item 14, move forward, which is 22.00791 Sproxton Hall Farm, East Helmsley, and Alan will be moving quickly into position.
Thank you, Chair. The application before members is a resubmission following the earlier refusal. The application, that decision was made in July 2021. The application is subject to a number of objections from local residents, the parish council, and the AONB manager, and is therefore reported to planning committee for determinations. Members may recall that the previous application was the subject of a member's site inspection, which took place in December 2020. As detailed in the planning district section of the report, the earlier application was refused for 2 reasons. Firstly, noise disturbance from on-site activity, and also traffic travelling through the village. And secondly, the impact of fire engineer passing places within the village street, which would deemed to be detrimental to the character and appearance of this part of the village within the AONB. The applicant has sought to address the reasons for refusal via this revised proposal. I wish to draw members' attention to a number of updates The late pages included the highways response with the schedule of conditions, and also further representations from objectors, and also a full schedule of 50 conditions incorporating the highways conditions. In addition to those included in the late pages, 5 further representations from individuals who have previously objected have been submitted since the circulation of the late pages. Concerns raised are covered by the summary provided within the Officer report. Other updates include a site location plan, which has been provided to members via email and also in paper copy, and that is a map-based plan which corresponds with the application site as shown on page 258 of the agenda. So as you know, on page 258, the site is shown on an aerial photo. Other updates include an updated transport statement, which includes a minor correction as requested by Highways that relates to the vehicle movements between the hours of 6 and 7 p.m. And also, finally, a further response is being provided by the Parish Council, which is included in this evening's papers. There are no defining issues brought to light in that response that are summarised in the report. As detailed in the report, principal concerns have been raised by the Parish Council and local residents relate to highways impacts, noise disturbance, and landscape and visual impacts. The proposal incorporates suitable mitigation in relation to traffic management and noise attenuation. The noise attenuation centres on the use of the zone array sound system. In terms of the highways impact, the venue will be served by a dedicated access route which bypasses the village, and there will be directional signage, a traffic management plan, a travel plan, and on-site parking required. There will be no vehicle access to prevent traffic off the lane and right of way. The highway officer has no objections and has recommended schedule conditions to mitigate the highway's impact. With regard to noise, it's been agreed that the venue will cater for a maximum of 180 people. There will be limits on the hours of use of the building. Live amplified music will stop at 11 p.m. and live recorded music will stop at midnight, with the exception of New Year's Eve. There will be no more than 2 events involving amplified music per week, and there will be no fireworks permitted. Crucially, the applicant has committed to post-completion acoustic testing to set noise limits at the site boundary and subsequent monitoring the events of complaints. There would also be a detailed noise management plan secured as part of the development. There are no objections from the Environmental Health Officer, subject to conditions as recommended. The EHO is aware of the local concern in relation to noise impact and has been involved in the drafting of the plan conditions before members this evening. We have robustly examined all of the concerns that residents have with respect to noise impact that we can exert influence on, and take the opinion that the amenity of neighbouring residents will be adequately protected. The EHO has also responded to local concerns that the proximity of the site to Sproxton Hall cottages has not been fully understood and assessed, and states the following. Both noise assessments, which is the assessment provided by the applicant and on behalf of the objectors, both noise assessments identified residential receptors at that location, and the predictions and background measurements factor this in. I am quite satisfied about the accuracy of identified receptors through, though from an environmental health perspective, with respect to nuisance, we couldn't consider temporary residence. That's with reference to the whole thing. They will, of course, be considered when it comes to setting boundary limits and post-completion propagation testing. Now move on to a number of slides which illustrate the application site in Somalia.
Chair, just before I mention the slides, sorry, I didn't share so late. I am a member of the AHAONB Joint Advisory Committee, and I need to say this, I am not involved in any planning classes as part of that.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first slide is a copy of the site location plan. So members refer to page 258 of the agenda. That also illustrates the application site boundary in red does replicate. There's no change in terms of the application site area. So moving on to the next slide, we have an aerial photo which I've annotated to primarily illustrate the access, the upgraded access, and the route of the access track, access road to the site. So in the top left-hand corner, I've just highlighted the position of the upgraded access. So this is access taken directly onto the A170. The route of the access is shown as the red dashed line. So it runs on the northern side and eastern side of an existing field hedgerow. On the southern side of that hedgerow, as shown as a purple line, is a public footpath. So that does actually take a route along approximately half of the access road, or on the farm side, the village side of the hedgerow. And then also I highlighted the public bridle way, which is shown as green. So that extends from the eastern edge of the village, running to the south of the farm, and then you can see where it forks in the bottom corner, bottom right corner of the aerial photo. It forks to lead off to two other farms in the area. I've also highlighted the position of the venue itself, which are the farm buildings to the rear of Sproxton Hall. These are curtilage listed buildings, with Sproxton Hall being grade 2 listed itself. And I've also highlighted the position of the car park, which is within the eastern paddock access of the access road. I've also highlighted the position of the B1257 at the western side of the village. So the proposal is that all of the traffic would use the new access and would not be directed through the village itself. So moving on to the next slide. So this is a close-up of the application site in terms of the buildings and the car park. So I've highlighted the buildings which would provide which would be subject to the conversion to provide the venue itself. So that's centrally within that slide. And then I've also shown the position of the farmhouse and the access and car park. I've also shown on the northern side, that would be the access to service and trade vehicles and staff. On the southern side would be the outdoor area that would be used by guests or visitors during events. To the west of the site is Sproxton Hall cottages, referred to in the representations. So we're moving on to the next slide. So this is facing north on the A170. On the right-hand side of the road is the field access, which is going to be upgraded to provide access to the venue. So this is facing towards Helmsley. And the next slide is facing across the road down what would be the new access. So the access would run on the left-hand side of that hedgerow that you can see, and the public footpath runs along the right-hand side of that hedgerow. So in this area, the access would be formed from 30-metre long apron in a balanced surface to ensure that material isn't dragged onto the public highway. Beyond that, it would be a crushed stone access road. The next slide is facing north to show the visibility displays that are available. And the next slide is facing south, showing visibility. So this is facing towards the junction to access Sproxton itself. So it's on the bend, head towards Southern Bank. So on that photo, you can see the highway sign, which is referred to in their response, which does need to be adjusted to provide the required visibility. So I believe that sign is due to be increased in height. So the next slide, please. So this is facing along the access. So I've included these red arrows, which is just directed. So this series of photos, I'm working my way towards the application site. So the next slide, please. So this is facing north, northeast, across the landscape, just showing the change in topography. It's quite an elevated site. And the next slide is facing back towards the village itself, where you can see there is a sort of undulation to the field itself as the land rises up towards the village and then drops down again on the other side. So moving on to the next slide, please. So yeah, just working our way eastward along the access road. So just following what the track that's already there. Just move along in the next photo. The tree that you can see there, at that on the corner there, you would turn south. So the route that you take would be roughly east-south, east-south to meet the farm. So this is travelling east. The next slide is facing south. And I'll try to illustrate the route on the inside of the hedgerow along here. And moving on to the next slide. So at this point, I've actually stopped. There was a gap in the hedgerow. And I've taken photos facing back towards the access point of the A170. So members might be able to make out on the right hand side, you can see the bales, stack of bales, and the hedgerow beyond which the access would be. So this is facing west, and I'll come round from north to south just to show how the land form changes between the northern side of the village and the access road. So the next slide, just facing west, so you can see there is another field boundary between the village and the access road, and then finally just facing further southwest. So this is facing towards the village. So there are a few properties that you can see there, but there is a separation distance. So the next slide is back facing on the access route. This is facing east along sort of the second half of the route. On the right hand side there is a field opening, a field gate. That is actually where the public footpath runs across the field to meet the farm. So on the right hand side you might just be able to see the silhouette of some buildings, and that is Spoxton Hall itself. So the next slide, travelling eastward still along the field edge. And the next slide, this is again along that route, just facing towards the farm itself. I've just highlighted where the access route branches off to provide an access for farm vehicles and trade and service vehicles. So this would link into the farmyard itself. So the next slide is actually taken from within Spoxton Hall, and it's facing back out of the farmyard, and it just shows the route of that branch of the access route. So the next slide, please. So this is where the access, if you look at the application site, it cuts the corner, one of the paddocks to the west, to the east of the farm, and then the next slide, you can see that it runs on the outside of the hedge, and this is on the far eastern side of the farm, so furthest from the village at this point. And then the next slide is the final one on the route. So this is facing into the opening, which would be where vehicles would access the car park. And the next slide, please. So this is a plan taken from the application. This is within the agenda papers on page 261. So this is a site layout plan, which shows the access point in the top right-hand corner. It shows the layout of the car park and the overspill areas. It shows the drop-off area and also the access and the paved area on the southern side of the farm building itself. Also highlighted the position of the wildflower meadow and the proposed hedge planting on the southern side of that paddock, on the southern side of the car park. Also highlighted the lockable field gates, which are referred to in the application. These would be locked during events to ensure that all vehicles can access the site of the existing track of the bridleway itself. So moving on to the next slide, please. This is taken from the bridleway to the south, facing up towards where the car park would be. I've just highlighted the access through the hedgerow there. So the car park would be grasscrete for 60 spaces, then the overflow of 30 spaces would remain as grass. Then in the foreground, you can see the posted wire fence, and this is where the native hedgerow would be planted along that boundary. So the next photos are just panning round westward, so facing towards the farm buildings, and again just facing. So that boundary there is between the car park and what would be the wildflower meadow and also the outdoor area. So on the left-hand side is the boundary where the hedgerow would be planted. And the next photo, please. So this is facing back up southeast along the bridleway. So
So it's just to illustrate the existing field hedgerow, which does provide some screening at the moment of the car park field. And the next slide, please. So this is moving west along the bridleway back towards the village itself. So on the right hand side you can see Sproxton Hall, which is the applicant's property, and also on the left hand side you can see Sproxton Hall cottages, which is the dwelling and holiday cottages, which are not within the applicant's ownership, as shown on the plan. So the next slide, please, is just showing, it's panning back towards the farm buildings. So this is the southern gable end of Sproxton Hall. And the next slide is facing the southern elevation of the venue itself. So the Pantile buildings and the triple pitch roof is where the venue will be created itself. So panning round facing towards the outdoor area that would serve the venue. Also, the next slide is just panning round facing towards the car park, the furthest field shown there. And then the next slide, please. So this is facing towards Sproxton Hall cottages on the western side of the bridleway. And the next slide is facing back towards Sproxton Hall itself. So there would be no views from the cottages towards the car park or the outdoor area, because it would be screened by Sproxton Hall itself. So the next slide is that is the floor plan. And it doesn't display very clearly on there, but that is included within the agenda at page 263. So the purpose of that is just to illustrate the various areas within the venue. So you've got your reception hall is the central, what would have been the fold yard. On the eastern side, you've got the pre-drinks and conference rooms. The southeast corner is the main entrance exit, and that is where the outdoor area would be created. Along the southern side is where the bridal lounge would be created, the toilets and cloakrooms. The western side would be closed off because beyond that is the private courtyard serving the main dwelling. And the northern range is the staff facilities, stores and food preparation area. Up in the northeast corner is a barn which is shown in one of the following photos. That would become the ceremony barn, also usable as a workshop area. So moving on to the next photos, please. So this is just working our way around the buildings themselves. So this is the western elevation. So this would be closed off. So there'd be no access into this area in the foreground. This would be the private courtyard that serves Sproxton Hall itself. The only access point would be a fire exit on the left-hand side on this elevation. So moving around, this is the northern elevation. So the ceremony barn is the building on the left-hand side. And this is where there'd be a short extension to link the single-story building on the right to this, what would be the ceremony barn. So this would create a covered and the next photo I think is moved inside. So this is within the fold yard. So so the roof would be replaced. The pillars would be retained. But this area would become the main reception area. So this is where the dance floor would be, or they usually never a wedding do. So just the next photos is just panning round within this area. Next photo, please. Again, just within that area. So on the right hand side is the utility space, the stores, the space for the caterers. That's where they would be preparing the food for the events. And this is the eastern elevation. So this actually faces onto the livestock sheds. So the farm itself would be operational. It would continue as a mixed arable livestock farm. But obviously the applicant would have control in terms of activity and vehicle movements when there's events that are on. So moving to the next slide, this is actually the final slide. So this is a close-up of the southern elevation, and there would be an opening created within the stone wall on the right-hand side, which would be the main entrance exit point. So this area, the foreground, the grass area, area would be created. So it's also referred to as a smoking area, but taken to be the outdoor space that would serve the venue. That's the final slide. So, as recommended, the application is recommended for approval, subject to a schedule of 50 conditions as listed in the main pages by the chair and Lucas and the speakers on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. All right, first up, we've got some questions on this one. Councillor Mason.
Can you explain the rationale between live music and recorded music? Because my history is playing recorded music. We used to play it all that. And I don't understand the rationale of 11 or 12 not having live music. It doesn't make sense to me. Because you can whack up the systems playing something. Just, is that a planning reason?
I think primarily the timescales on the live music, the live amplified music, that's been imposed by the applicants and it never got cut off. And then after that, there would be, I guess, the disco, through to wedding events until midnight, which would also be amplified. So I think the EH was satisfied with it. Ultimately, all of the amplified music would be covered by the noise limiting condition. So in terms of the measurements that we've taken post completion of the construction work, those levels would apply to whether it's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So yeah, the live music is as proposed by the applicant, which we've accepted as
Point of information on the page, I think it's a licensing quirk rather than planning. Doesn't offend it.
That's straight. Right, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chairman. Alan, you mentioned that part of the new route to the venue was along the footpath, right? Is that right?
it runs parallel to it, but would be no physical impact.
Right.
So I don't know if it's possible to bring up the second slide, I think it was. So not all that clear, but the red line is the access node.
Right.
The purple line, which is beyond the hedge road,
Right.
is to the south.
So there should, effectively, there should be no conflict between footpathers and drive and house users with that access traffic. That's fine. Thank you very much for that. Another thing that slightly concerns me, the field gates are going to be lockable to prevent access to the venue, presumably while the venue is dark. My question then becomes, what happens when somebody wants to leave early? Because Anti-Fleur, who's 95, can't bear disco music and wants to leg it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the gates are on. Is she going to have to go down the main street?
It's shown on one of the slides, but it could be difficult to find it at this point. But the reference to lockable gates is the gates along the right of way. So on the southern side, the paddocks. So that would mean that there's no access to or from the car park from the village school. So anybody who wants to leave, whatever time it is, would have to use the new access.
That's fine. Just wanted clarity with that. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought we were looking the lake and thinking, well, that's. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mason.
Thanks. Alan, I'm looking at the title of the proposal and it contains etc. What's included or excluded, or you can appreciate my question. What we're not seeing from the etc.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can understand it. That aspect of the description has caused a concern. And in terms of the use that we would be permitting, it would be a sui generis use, a mixed use. The events, I think the reference to the weddings is taken to be almost the worst case scenario that if anything, other events would not really have the impact of the wedding potentially. So there'd be reference to allowances, lunches, various things like that. I think the reference to etc. is potentially problematic. I picked up by the applicants in their 3 minutes this evening. I think it is possible that if it was acceptable, it could be granted that deletes reference to that etc. To provide that additional comfort.
Right. Councillor Andrew is next.
Yes, Chair. I think Alan, you might already answered my question. I'm sorry if it's quite a long report, so I'm sorry if I've missed something. But what is there to prevent some people driving through the village in order to obtain access to the site? I realise that a special road is being built to allow them in. But what is there to prevent the public from using the road which is there at the moment? Is it perhaps going to lock the gates to the car park or something of that kind?
So in terms of vehicles travelling through the village, we've not been physically there to prevent them. So any vehicle could do that, but we won't be able to access the car park. So there would be a condition that would require all event-related traffic to use the new access road. So that's entering and exiting. So I know there is concern about potential for vehicles to travel down the village, but they would not be able to physically access the site online. And actually, in terms of the application site itself, the revised plans have actually pulled back the car park from the right way, so there is no connection in terms of the application site. So that gap is actually quite crucial. That the permission doesn't actually extend to the right way of the road itself. So it would be physically possible for obviously vehicles to travel down to the farm through the village, but that would be deemed as a breach of the condition.
Yeah, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this is the same access road that was refused permission in 1990, as it was far too dangerous. There's been no road improvements since then, so can you tell me why it's not too dangerous now?
In terms of the access proposal and its acceptability, it has obviously been discussed with the highways officer. But ultimately, they're happy in terms of the improvements involved and the nature of the A170 and the visibility to it to not have an objection. So that's obviously central to our recommendation that accepts this highways impact.
Right, Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Andrew stole my original question because it is a public road through the village, so there's no way that we can stop them using it, either intentionally or by accident. So I do see an issue there. And the other question I have is, in a small village, up to 180 people at weddings, birthday parties, whatever, amplified music till 11, recorded music till midnight. How on earth are we going to protect the villagers from noise? Thank you.
In terms of the noise impact, it will go back to the conditions and the post-construction surveys, which will establish a measured noise limit at a agreed position, which can be checked by an environmental health officer. There are provisions for should complaints be lodged, that certain works might need to be taken before amplified music is permitted again in certain circumstances. So it is relies on those conditions.
Yeah. All right. Hang on, Councillor Patrick.
Scrabbling around looking for my notes. But just on to start at the entrance to the subject, potential for vehicles going into the village, is it possible to condition the steward should be on duty at all times, directing traffic in the right place when I use the equipment and for module. In fact, I often need to stand
further questions on the slide? Yeah, councillor.
Chair, am I right that the noise limits and the points and the point of measuring the noise limits haven't yet been fixed yet? They still have to be fixed at a later stage. I asked the question because I can well understand that the people here might be concerned. They don't know. They don't actually know what they're actually going to encounter.
Yeah, that is correct. But as it stands, the noise assessments are based on predicted noise attenuation. So the sort of fallback position is once the construction has been complete, it will be the final noise surveys that will establish those limits, which will then be monitored and potentially enforced against in the future. So the EHO's response at the moment is based on noise assessments and predictions based on the effects of the zone-based sound system and the envelope of the building itself. There is reference to the it was a noise demonstration, but obviously that took place with the existing shell of the building. So that wasn't something that we really rely on in terms of making recommendations, just an example of the existing building and how it contains noise. So yeah, it's the post-completion survey which is crucial.
I think, not to contradict you, I think post-completion survey is critical, but I think there's a step long before that, and that's at the design stage. I think everybody in this room knows that when you open a window, out goes your sound. So I would suggest several things here. All windows to be non-opening, all glazing to be acoustic pass, doors to be airlock doors, and if you want an example of this, go to the junction in Goole and walk out of their venue, and you cannot walk out of their venue without the door behind you closing and the other one before the other one opens, which keeps the sound inside the same at the stage and gets out. I would have mechanical ventilation only, so nobody's tempted to wedge a door open or throw a window open at 11 o'clock at night with the purple or whatever it might be howling across towards Hounslow. Yeah, there's a simple little list. I don't know whether it's already in the list of conditions, but I would definitely not have a single window that would open on that building. It's all doable. We just need to go with the door. Say you. One needs to go and visit the places that are in the built area making a lot of noise, but not disturbing. As Councillor DJ Mason says, any more than nightclub.
Yeah, just briefly on that, condition 28, although not requiring windows to be non-openable, there is a requirement for them to be closed during that time. Music and the main entrance and exit points on sub-elevation, is a requirement that has self-closing mechanism. So that's where everybody obviously itself.
Just a point of detail, a self-closing mechanism is not the same as the door closing behind you and then before another one opens. I think that is critical, especially in a situation like this, because every time somebody wants to fight or wants to smoke his neighbour's missus, or whatever they do, that door will be open, and that's where you're going to get the trouble. And this is all about trying to prevent trouble happening and prevent people being disturbed. I would have electric shuttle bus actually. So an electric shuttle bus, not 100 cars going up and down with the 10 lights flaring.
Sure, that doesn't sound extra. Right, I have a question myself. There's an awful lot of conditions on here. Have they all been agreed by the agents and the applicants?
Yes, I have.
Right, thank you. Right, have we got any more questions? I think we've done that one today. Right, we have 4 speakers on this one. First of all, we have parish councillor Dudley Hazarika Stephanie.
Rory has reconsenting. Thank you.
Right, okay. Press the button at the front, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll give you a warning if I need to.
At every parish meeting regarding this application, the overwhelming majority and unanimously at the last meeting objected vehemently to the application. To even be considered for approval, there should be significant changes which address the reasons for unanimous refusal in this very chamber in 2021 regarding alternative access. This seems to be a significant improvement. However, the proposed access will be a fragile stone track used by farm and venue traffic. There could be up to 90 guest cars, plus suppliers and contractors, as well as farm traffic using this track every single day of the year. The latest car park plans, which appeared this evening for a few seconds only, not only seem to show a new access point off the bridleway to the right-hand side of Sproxton Hall, but also 3 viable access points directly onto the well-used bridleway and village street, which is a narrow road with no pavement, poor lighting, closely bordered by residential properties. Issues which significantly contributed to the refusal of the previous application and remain unresolved. Additional signage would be needed to prevent drivers using the village street and permanent notices in both directions on all approach roads, none of which are desirable aesthetically to this village and the AONB. Regarding management of inside noise and the proposed zone array system, the planning statement itself states that the management of inside noise is likely not guaranteed. It may be effective for amplified noise over the dance floor. However, there will be cumulative noise too, from non-amplified live music, the PA system, merry guests, etc. Details of essential soundproofing are woefully lacking. Outside noise, such as smoking, drinking, chatting, banging car doors, is entirely dismissed and remains a hugely significant concern, especially to the holiday cottage business only 50 metres away. All noise is either ignored or managed by technology with its obvious limitations, or guest behaviour controlled by an inadequate, unenforceable noise management plan. All other reasons for refusal remain. This is a large-scale, multi-events venue for up to 180 people. The car park capacity has increased by some 30% in later amendments. As the application is not only for weddings but mixed use, approval would mean any event imaginable would be given carte blanche. If this unthinkable development is to go ahead, it must be conditioned to be tied to the ownership of the farm enterprise, not to the farmhouse as appears in the report. Otherwise, it is not farm diversification and could lead to the house and events buildings being sold separately to the farm and, crucially, the access route. Recent amendments rely increasingly on conditions. In fact, over 50% of the points on Mr. Goforth's report are conditioned. What is the point of conditions if they are unenforceable? The changes proposed do not alleviate the effect on residential amenity of the village, particularly noise, or impact on the AONB reasons for refusal in 2021. Sproxton Parish Meeting compels you to reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, next we have supporter Simon Walford. You have 3 minutes as well.
Chairman, members, thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words this evening in support of the application. I have lived in Sproxton with my family for 17 years. It's a delightful village and Rydale is a great place to live. But I am concerned about the future of our district as a place for young people to grow up, live and work. If they are to afford to live and work locally, we must have a strong, diversified local economy. Today, Sproxton is a working village with a number of businesses and several farms. It's important that all of these businesses continue to evolve so as to be able to provide continuity for future generations and offer jobs to others. Sproxton Hall is a case in point. Today it is a successful farm, but the agricultural sector is more uncertain than ever, and farmers have been asked to diversify to ensure that they can remain viable. But this project is an outstanding example of a farm diversification scheme, but one that also benefits the wider economy. As shown by its economic impact model, it will generate an annual cash injection of up to £2.5 million into the local economy. If we take the multiplier effect into account, this could reach between 3.5 and 5 million, representing a significant part of the Rydale economy. The business model is location hire only, and it requires to be serviced by a deep-rooted local supply chain. Caterers, bar staff, musicians, florists, bakers, photographers, hairdressers, etc. will be brought in to provide services. That means jobs for Rydale residents, a total of 8 jobs. Visitors using the venue will also stay in Helmsley's renowned hotels, eat in its excellent restaurants, and will visit local shops, benefiting many local businesses. Now, there were very understandable concerns about the initial application for the reasons that we've heard today, and the applicant has worked hard coming up with workable solutions. The new access road from the A170 takes all event traffic totally away from the village. Guests arriving to and leaving the event will do so behind high hedges and screen. Now, also, very importantly, this new farm road provides a massive Sproxton Hall's own farm traffic, which is considerable, will, for the most part, be redirected away from the village streets and onto the new farm track. This is a valuable side benefit for those living places. In terms of noise management, we've heard about the sound array system, which will considerably reduce the noise impact. I attended a demonstration of that. It's fantastic. It's perfectly possible to have a quiet conversation the width of this room away from the dance floor. With these 2 significant improvements in this revised application, I believe there are 4 reasons to support this project. The sustainability of farming operations at Sproxton Hall, a cash injection into the local economy of between 2.5 and 5 million, 8 jobs for local residents, and the marketing of Rydale as a great place to visit and a great place to get married. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you. Next, we have an objector, which is Mr. Stuart Long.
My name is Stuart Long, Associate Solicitor with Lloyds LLP. I'm instructed to object to this planning application on behalf of my clients, Mr. Christopher Jenkins and Ms. Diane Garside. The refusal of the 2021 application is an overwhelming material consideration against the present application, and the officer's report does not provide any weight to this. This is a material error. Due to very low ambient background noise levels to this village and the elevated position of the venue, the proposed development would result in devastating noise disturbance to all villages that would have a significant impact on residential community. The closest residents and their tourism visitors are only 50 minutes away. External event noise and traffic noise cannot be successfully mitigated against using the zone array system because outside noise, non-amplified music, people singing along, PA systems, car doors slamming, and vehicles leaving the event will all contribute to cumulative negative impacts. Notwithstanding the proposals for new access track, the main street would remain readily accessible for cars attending the venue. This would exacerbate the noise problem. Some members of this panel may recall they refused the previous application in July 2021, which was the same in scale and kind as the present application. The Environmental Health Office has previously concluded that the 2021 application would have a significant negative impact on local residents' residential amenity, especially concerning noise disturbance. Our clients were alarmed. The Environmental Health Office now concluded that noise impact can be mitigated, and this conclusion is not tenable or plausible. Quote from RDC Environmental Health Report, July 2021. Experience tells that these controls are not always followed and in reality were unenforceable. Also in the same report, the principal recommendations for how sound reductions at the venue will be achieved rely very much on human behaviours. If granted, the majority of 50+ planning conditions relate to human behaviour, and so many conditions, as proposed in the Planning Office report, will be impossible to manage. The AONB objects due to impact on noise disturbance, visual impact and light pollution, while the CPRE also objects. These are significant stakeholders and great which provide us their strong objections. The overwhelming view expressed in numerous parish meetings and via objectors' letters has been this development is in the wrong location and the proposed litigation will be ineffective. Members should be aware that approval of the application will have a great impact on noise and the character and appearance of the village with surrounding the AONB. Any approval contains so many unenforceable conditions must be unsafe, leaving the villages to deal with all future implications. Approval would result in poorly adverse and unacceptable noise impacts that would have devastating irreversible ramifications on the village residents, local tourist business, and future generations affecting their residential needs. Members must surely refuse the application.
Thank you. Next, we have the agent, Cheryl Ward.
Thank you, Chairman, members and officers for considering this bona fide farm diversification scheme. The application has sought to overcome two main reasons of objection, namely noise and disturbance to the occupiers of residential properties located close to the approach road leading to and from the farm, and two, accessing the venue for the proposed event use. The applicants have worked exceptionally hard to ensure that this development is and will continue to be sensitive to its surroundings, do not have an unacceptable impact on local roads, and exploit opportunities to make the location more sustainable without harm to the local landscape. At a national level, paragraph 84 and 85 of the NPPF is supportive of a prosperous rural economy, which is respectful of the character of the countryside. At significant cost and benefit to the wider area, the applicant sought to circumvent the provision of a brand new access across his own land and is seeking to direct all event-related vehicles to the venue via the new route and should be commended for these safeguarding efforts. As a result, the tranquility of the narrow village street will be preserved in its entirety. The new access will be built for longevity and will safeguard the application site in Scotston Village. Further effort is channeled into the scheme to ensure the southern edges are softened with wildflower meadow, buffer zones encompassing green spaces, and a new hedgerow planting with significant biodiversity net gains. On a few points of clarification, when the venue is not in operation, these outside areas are required to be grazed and are needed for livestock movement and machinery access, and therefore cannot be permanently closed off. Access to the site from the bridleway is needed at all times, although will be locked during events except for the pedestrian handgate. There can be no impact from car headlights, as at all times along the new access route there is an intervening hedgerow in between, which will act as a barrier and sound attenuator. At the closest point, the new access road is 100 metres away from any residential property. The site arrangement, layout and intervening buildings provide a further degree of sound attenuation for the nearest receptors to noise. As mentioned, this is a farm diversification scheme, and we ask members not to lose sight of the fact that it remains a busy working farm. With regard to noise of building works or where events are not in progress, the farm runs as normal. There is noise in the farmyard 7 days a week. The technical assessments submitted together with the suggested conditions form the basis for future monitoring, review and remediation, and have been considered by statutory consultees and are considered to be sound. They will allow the venue to operate in a manner which will not prejudice highway safety, residential amenity, nor the distinctive special qualities of the AONB. It has been positively demonstrated that the proposal aligns with local and national planning policies as a viable rural diversification scheme and will allow sustainable growth and a strong, competitive rural economy which is fit for purpose. Finally, the applicant would be agreeable to drop in the etc. from the development description. Thank you for your time this evening.
All right, thank you. So we will move into debate. Is this your area, Sloan? Right. Off you go.
Thank you, Chair. I cannot support this application despite the slight changes from the one of refusal. How can this access be enforced? How was this access deemed to be far too dangerous previously, and it's not dangerous now, despite there being no road improvements? There's nothing to stop any vehicle driving through the village of Scotston, and if Scotston Hall Farm is looking to a sat nav, it will send them through the village. And again, given the choice between a farm track and a metal road, especially for an expensive vehicle, will only be one option. It also states that there will be no agricultural vehicle movements for 2 hours before the wedding reception and 2 hours before the evening reception. I don't think there'll be much chance of that happening in the middle of harvest or hay time. Then there's the noise management plan. Again, who will enforce it? And who will make sure all windows and doors are closed if it's a particularly warm summer's day evening? The first thing that will happen is that people will open doors and windows and head outside, and we all know how sound carries at night, especially in this vicinity. Condition 21 states if there are complaints and it is found that a breach occurred, and all amplified music will cease immediately. That is like it is expected to happen, so why give it permission to happen?
So to protect the existing amenities of the residents of Strongston and the A or NB, I will move review.
Thank you, Chair. Right, thank you. Do you have anybody else? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the officers for a very detailed report. And I recall the site visit that we all went on, and it was discussed at length before we made that original review for reasons which have been explored tonight, the car parking and the access and the noise. So I'm going to speak from a personal point of view because I live 1 mile away from a wedding venue, and that's types. Sound of home. And I live in a very quiet area like Strongston. And they have all the conditions in place at times. But they open the doors. They open the doors when it gets hot, even with the ventilation system they've got. Because the fire doors have to be there. You can't close the venue off without fire escapes, and they can just push the door out and out we go. And that noise carries in the quiet of the night. That noise carries right across to Claxton and right across to Sandhurst, and we can hear them, and we can hear the music, and that's unavoidable. And it isn't too disturbing when you're a mile away. But this village isn't a mile away. It's on the doorstep, and it would be intolerable for those residents to be exposed to events that are taking place 2 or 3 times a week at the weekends. And it is for that reason, unfortunately, I will not support the application, and I'll second refusal.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've listened to the arguments, and I cannot see past this noise problem with 180 people, a small quiet village, a lovely summer's evening, when everything's still. They are going to come out, and the noise will carry. The public road, you physically are not allowed to stop people using it. And I cannot see this having anything but a negative impact on residents. So I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, unlike the previous 3 members, I looked at the access road and seemed to answer that aspect of the problem of this application based last time. Like the previous 3 speakers, though, the remaining noise problems, I just cannot see how they will get over them. However, I don't think I've ever seen a list of conditions as long as this in an application. The orientation of the outside spaces. I'm not an architect. I'm not a designer. So it's not for me to suggest where else they could put it. I have to look at what's in front of us tonight. And again, I cannot support this.
Councillor Mills.
So I think the route in has been dealt with. I think that's a good improvement. But it's funny because I find that mitigation policies on paper to deal with environmental issues are so good on paper. But the thing they do always seem to fail is when you get the having run my experience in Carolina, talking about nightclubs, having dealt with the same other places, and having to run about shutting doors all the time because otherwise we can shut down. By who we never did. I think it's the same situation here. So I think, and for me, I think it's support.
Any more for any more? No, right. Well, I seem to recall back when we dealt with this previously, it was described as the right application in the wrong location. I very much agree with that at the time. I would love to support this and see it turn into a successful venue. But it's got to be in the right place. And I have to say that I am not convinced that this is in the right place. I have the same concerns as when we used it. Can all users be compelled to use the new access road, particularly if it's a gravel track? I think some people won't be too keen. I'm concerned why there are such discrepancies between the opinions of noise consultants to the applicants and to the objectors, although clearly that could be based on the questions that are being asked. It doesn't make it right. The list of conditions as agreed is extensive and comprehensive and appears to cover most, if not all, of the objections, provided they are scrupulously complied with. You know, I really agree with everybody else that I just cannot see human nature complying with all those conditions. And in this quiet and remote location, which a lot of us saw on site visits, if it was to be passed, the villagers would have to be very clear about those conditions and complain accordingly if they're breached. Well, that's going to put quite an onus on villagers. But really, I just don't see enough to support this application. So, is anybody else wishing to speak? No? Right. Well, the refusal has been moved and seconded, so we'll go to the vote. Or refused. That's unanimous, but we clearly need a reason for the refusal. Does anybody want to suggest that, or do we go with the pretty much the reason?
Yeah, I think we fear a significant negative impact on the local area. The wording is on the I think it's the same as before. The residential amenity, not just of the immediate neighbour, but of the whole village, is seriously at risk.
I don't see any reason why you can't repeat the previous conditions. And I also think, Chair, that there's been so much discussion during the meeting. We've heard what the objectors have said, and we've heard what Al said. I would have thought the officers have enough to be able to grant a reasonable refusal, which reflects the opinion of our members. I don't think we need to do their job for them.
I think it's obviously Chairman to articulate reasons for refusal. I think what Alan and I have particularly been that clearly you have some concerns about noise and activity which you feel can't be controlled or adequately controlled from issues. We're reviewing conditions of growth because we're reviewing that there are not a reason for a refusal to say that they're not impossible. We believe they are. I think what we've taken from the debate is that we believe that there will be some form of noise. And that's actually incidental coming and going before moving outside of the but that I think is a key reason that I'm taking.
Could I also add that in the reasons for refusal last time, part 2, where it said, well, that's actually particularly referring to the passing places and the approach, but generally detrimental to the character and appearance of this part of the village of Sproxton and the designated Palladian Hills, area of outstanding natural beauty, etc. I think that needs to be part of the combination.
Chair, sorry, just in terms of that second reason for refusal, as
has improved on the previous decision. That it made reference to the fire engineer passing spaces on the street. So obviously the conclusion reached was that that had a detrimental effect on carriage and appearance on that part of the village. Is it members' opinion that obviously those passing places are not part of the application? So is it that in reference to the application site or the access to the road? So
Councillor.
Chair, I'm just slightly nervous to put that in because what we need is a really robust reason for an inspector to look at, and I believe that the negative impact on the village and the residents within the village is the robust argument. If you then put in another one, it can water it down. So I would be a little bit reluctant to add in that. Sorry, Chair.
No, that's not a problem. Go with that.
I think that reflects the
Yeah. All right. You're all happy with that? I'm happy with that. Right, okay, in that case, we shall move on. The next up is item 11, Bright Steel Building, which is 22.00262, maybe 4 Beverly Road. No, I believe it's maybe 4, yeah. Would anybody like a quick 5 minutes while we're quite clearly everybody's moving? Yes, right, okay. I'll have a brief 5-minute recess. Yeah.
I want to sit up and down.
You can stay there, yeah. Yeah, I think you're all
I'm a
right.
bit confused about that.
No, I've had that in PNR before where we played this.
We don't know the site.
Yeah. I think it's as long as you don't take part in the debate and you're not allowing anybody.
We don't know the site. Well, no,
I think we'll leave that to science. Nothing. No, we were talking about it. Right, okay.
I mean, after the Junction Park and the afterwards.
Yeah.
Now it's 3 miles away, so there it's so it's a thousand.
No, I see little bits and pieces. Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure.
You're here.
charges that going into this.
Is it going to be up front?
Yeah. Oh, red light alert. Yeah.
You know, colour when you put red and green on the green background. I have no idea. Yeah, when Alan had that green on the rider, I was like, green rider with green background.
Oh. I don't think it was something we have. Do you want it for the concept? So I've written something down. Well, the biggest thing is
Thank you, Chair. If we can just go to the aerial map, that would be great. Thank you. The application site relates to the former Bright Steel site in Florida, located in the corner of the Old Street Fairfield Road. The site is currently under construction with roofs being for 4 terrace properties and 6 flats being built currently. This scheme was previously approved by members of Planning Committee at the January 2020 meeting. The following limited corrections are proposed as part of the application. It's the amendment of brick type, the addition of improved waterhouse ventilation system with standard ventilation, police to meet those regulation requirements instead. The improved metallic ventilation heating covering system is intended to secure appropriate noise levels internally with closed windows. It also relates to the emission of closed gates site, but the previously approved primary modeling treatments and to remain, so it's just literally the gates themselves. It also relates to the installation of new drainage channel to prevent surface water flowing off the highway. The application is only 4 members because of its size and haven't made any objections to this scheme. So just looking at the aerial map, I'm sure you're probably all familiar with this site. It occupies quite a prominent position in Morton. And it is just adjacent to the existing Bright Steel site to the west. northern elevation of the proposed terraces, and then beyond that, the proposed 6 flats. It's a little bit hard to see just because of the works we're going at the moment, but the design, as you might remember from the previous application, was sort of visual continuation of the terraces, and then a slightly higher proportion filled in for the 6 flats. The next photograph is just taking the back corner point. So you're appreciating the larger element, which is the flats, and just this kind of context with the street at that point. So the next photograph is looking at the southeastern corner of the flats, and what would be the parking amenity area just beside that to the right hand side. So you can see at this point there is a nice red brick, it sort of reflects what's in the local area. And it's sort of hard to see, but there will be a sort of mix of slate and panels on the kind of highest level. The next photograph site is actually taken from the south, and again, it's just another view of the terraces to the right hand side and the flats to the left hand side. It will involve off-street parking in the foreground and some private amenity spaces for the terraces and a sort of joint amenity space for the flats. In terms of the principal development as detailed in the report, this scheme, which is only seeking very limited amendments, continues to meet with the housing policies. In terms of character reform, as a noted, there are limited amendments, and it's considered that it would still relate to a significant visual enhancement upon the previously disused industrial site, which is very welcome given its prominence in this one sector location. The amended brick type is considered to be acceptable, and the proposed lighting scheme, as outlined in the report, is limited and sensitive, and appropriate landscaping has been secured and commissioned. In terms of amenity, scheme wouldn't result in any harm to the any harm to the amenity of neighbouring dwellings. Really, as part of this scheme, the critical aspect is whether the proposal will continue to provide a sufficient level of amenity for future occupiers in relation to noise, and that's due to the proximity of the existing factory operation to the highway. As I've noted, the current scheme seeks to omit the previously conditioned courthouse ventilation system, and very careful consideration is taken into this aspect as detailed in the report. There's been significant negotiation between the Crisis Environmental Health Team and the agency's acoustic consultants. A noise assessment specifically for this revised scheme has been undertaken, with external day and night time measurements taken during a 4-day period. It was concluded that the attenuation afforded by proposed blazing strategy was sufficient to meet the relevant British standards, and it would include triple ventry ventilation as the assessment was undertaken on the basis of closed windows. And this is also the case for the improved scheme previously. A final consultation response was received from the Crisis Environmental Health officers, who followed full consideration on the support evidence were satisfied and have recommended the condition. In terms of access to highway safety, the on-site parking provision existed in the previously approved scheme. 4 of the spaces would include EV charging points, which are controlled by commission. As part of the discharge of conditions for the previous scheme, various details were submitted to the council and agreed with the highways officer. So in light of this, the police officer, myself and the highways officer at North Yorkshire County Council agreed these more relevant conditions, and the highways officer's no objection to the scheme. In relation to drainage, as the detailed in the report, the proposed development will introduce soft landscaping and permeable pavement to the site, which was approved upon the previously entirely impermeable site, but while water service will continue to provide public sewer. As part of the report, it is noted that previously responsible for water was not going to for the 2018 scheme, and it wasn't registered by the local planning authority. A response has been received from Yorkshire Water this time, and it's not an objection, but it does seek the inclusion of conditions. The original scheme had obviously been approved by the drainage conditions from Yorkshire Water, and it is this previous scheme which has now been enacted by the developer. The drainage element has already been constructed with the edge of the horizon connection to the point series is complete. The conditions from Yorkshire Water recommended this amended scheme seek further details on whether it would be feasible to separate the following surface water discharges, and if it wasn't feasible, then like further information as to why it wasn't possible and what the discharge rates would be from the new scheme. The submitted drainage strategy is also noted that supervised having discounted at the next point that rather than historic arrangement which incorporated a totally impermeable area, this application actually presents a significant reduction of areas together with the use of permeable particles and planting. This would therefore significantly reduce the surface water from non-porous surfaces discharging to the sewer, reduce the discharge rate, and it does represent attachment in terms of the original site. Emails between myself and Yorkshire Water were appended to the committee report, just in order to get sort of full picture of the situation. The final email concluded that it would be fair and reasonable nor meet the text of site ministry planning conditions for the local planning authority to now attach the additional Yorkshire Water conditions at this stage. However, members may be aware that there is also a separate consent process outside of the planning process for any development making a connection to a sewer from new development such as this is obliged to give permission from Yorkshire Water. That's under section 106 sewer connection agreement. So essentially this does represent a fallback position. Both the developer and Yorkshire Water are aware of the onset situation and these separate requirements. So just to conclude, the proposed scheme is a high quality scheme that results in enhancement on the previously disused industrial site. It secures wider visual improvements from the local street scene. It's not considered this would result in any harm to residential amenity or access to health and safety with appropriate off-street parking provision secured. As you know, there has also been a scheme of decontamination on board the site and significant archaeological studies have been undertaken with results disseminated. So the officer's recommendation is one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nate. Have we got any questions for the officer? Oh, yes, Councillor Blackwell.
Yes, I will stand corrected in some of the those differently, but this is classed as a major application. I am surprised that that there is no reference to impact on air quality, given the fact that there are 10 units and there will be 10 units added to another X number of units added to another 10 units, 20 units, but there's no reference to cumulative impact on air quality in the airport management area. Presumably the resident derived as the drive is Morrison's. As to why that is just requiring development proposals within or adjoining the modern air quality management area to demonstrate how effects on air quality will be mitigated and further human exposure to chlorine air quality reduced. This application doesn't answer any of those questions in my opinion. If I'm not mistaken, it was suggested by Steve Richmond, who was environmental health officer here, that air quality impact assessment should be requested for any developments over 10.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have precisely the details of that. I don't think that's been reviewed in detail as part of this application. Within this scheme, we have consulted with the environmental health team. And I do know this is it's a slightly unusual situation to have greenfield development where it is the redevelopment of an industrial building within 27 location. So there is that ready access to sort of nearby services on foot. There are EV charging points. I think I'm not aware of precisely what occurred in that building previously, but the lawful industrial use that was there would be sort of no longer as part of this scheme, so that could represent an enhancement in that sense, and certainly an enhancement for neighbour residents in that specific fashion. I appreciate that doesn't specifically answer your point, but there is an extent permission that has a lawful commencement on it.
I will bother coming back on that actually, because it doesn't answer the question. You're quite right.
Oh, yes, councillor.
I just wanted to pick up that this similar connection issue. I think it's my understanding Yorkshire Water are in a position where they can, for example, I'm not sure if I can get around that, but I don't think Yorkshire Water can.
Right, I do have a sort of a question. I'm presuming this is part retrospective because we appear to have used our laws for bricks.
Yes, that's correct. But the relevant conditions from the original application of those previous have been discharged. They are using the original scheme. And they haven't sort of strayed into areas that haven't got effects.
Right, so I presume those materials were approved before they commenced the building, as in usually have to build the meter square. Right, well, I have no speakers on this one, so, Norman, yes, councillor again.
Thank you, Chair. As we discussed when the original plan commission was scrapped, this is a big improvement. I'm very familiar with this area. It's a big improvement on what was there, which was very much an industrial building. I think that it's a really good location. It will improve that area and the visibility in that area. And so I'm quite happy to move approval.
Yes, councillor Andrews.
Yes, Chair, I'll second that. I am concerned about that. We don't seem to be taking much notice of the requirement for surveys for pollution and that sort of thing. This may not actually be in the air quality management area, or traffic generated from this area will contribute to that, and I do expect that some buildings have to be continued to be used for industrial purposes. There will probably be an enhancement in the game by making it residential.
Any more? Right, well, I'd just like to make a comment that this is a good example of a brownfield site, and I know we previously approved this, but many people are clamouring for brownfield sites to be developed rather than greenfield ones. And the developers should be commended for doing so, and with a very sympathetic design, despite the inherent problems of sites like this, which invariably add to the costs and the economic viability, because they usually have problems with contamination and so on. So I'm really pleased to see the development of a site like this, notwithstanding the fact that, yes, there are problems with air contamination within modern anyway. Right, so it has been moved and seconded for approval, so we'll go through. That one appears to be unanimous. So we will move to item 12. Yeah.
On item 12, I'll be going through the interests, types of interests. So this is like the current interest area, but still not clear what it's supposed to be declaring. And what we have is a clerical error on this application. Nothing else really, because I do not have any interest at all. The only thing it may affect is related to a reasonable person knowing all the facts. I think the interest would have been there. The wider public expect it doesn't really tick any of the advice that I'm looking at here, because the site is now not owned by the energy gas company, it's owned by a company. So I can't, there's no personal interest, it's because I was, I don't understand really what to do.
Yeah, I can't see any reasonable reason why you can't take part in the debate. I think we've got Alpha on the call somewhere. Councillor Clear?
Well, Alpha should be happy to it. I think the only reason that Councillor Mason is saying there is just the clarification he has to
install the site.
In case anybody has a mistake,
Yeah.
but
Site installed to an outside party. is nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think it isn't such a clerical error, I think that's what it's showing in the system, we want to be informed
Yeah.
that there's been a change. But clearly there isn't any.
I can't see any reason here, and even if it does test the one year about that to affect it, it doesn't meet both of the tests, so it's a still staying. But
Right, if Ultra can hear, could she either speak on this or send us a message to indicate whether it's acceptable for Councillor Mason to take part in the debate? I think we're all of the opinion that we should be able to. Right, I think we seem to be having problems getting hold of Alpha, so I think we'll continue with Councillor Mason. Oh. Right, okay, yeah, the question is, Councillor Mason is wondering whether he does have an interest in this because the site has been sold, so he doesn't have any sort of interest in the site anymore. So presumably it's okay to take part in the debate and vote.
best it comes in the non-registered interest. And if that's the case, then the test doesn't need to test one by itself.
Did you hear that? Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. I think that's quite reasonable. We can take part in. Right. Okay. We'll crack on. They introduce it, possibly not. 22 oblique 01322 oblique MFUL. This is for electricity, and it is Kevin Riley, our new renewables expert.
Good evening, Chair, members. The development site for this proposal is the former Knapton generating station, approximately 1 kilometre to the northeast of East Knapton. The proposal is for the construction of a renewable energy storage facility designed to provide gravity-assisted storage. The engineering principle behind the development is that a weight is suspended at the top of the shaft and forms a store of potential energy. This can be dropped and converted to electrical energy to supply the grid in periods of high demand by dropping the weight as its attached cable turns a generator. At periods of low demand, the weight is then raised back up using spare capacity in the grid next time it's required. The main structural components of this proposal are a 120-metre deep vertical shaft, and above ground there's a head sheave gear building and a winch gear building which will house the associated parts. At a maximum of the height of 12 metres, these structures will not appear significantly above the tree canopy of the encircling woodland. The following slides will add some detail. This site shows the Napton generating site, the former generating site, the long access track leading to the red rectangle in the top right of the screen. As you can see, it's a very remote location. Next, please. This site shows the existing site layout. The Napton generating station is in the process of dismantling and removing from the site. Some structures still remains to be seen. Next. This site shows the proposed site layout. In the bottom right of the screen, you can see the footprint of the test sheet gear building and the winch sheet gear building, which, as you can see, they're quite modest in footprint. Next, please. This is a section of the site as existing, showing some of the structures associated with its former use. Next, please. And this shows the above-ground buildings that will be associated with the construction and operation of the gravity turbine. In the bottom left, that's just some fencing which will surround the compound. Next, please. This is an area of the site showing a very thick band of trees all around the site, showing that the proposal will have almost no impact on the wider landscape. Next, please. This is within the site, showing some of the structures still there. That is the site possibility. Next. Further photo of the site, existing office buildings at the site. Next. In the foreground, you can see this is the south west corner of the site where the construction compound will be located. Next. This photo shows the the southeast corner of the site where the gravity proposal will be located. Next, please. And again, that just shows how it a further part of the site and the surrounding tree belt. For the reasons set out in my report, it is considered that the proposal is in accordance with development plan. There will be no harm to the landscape or the immediate neighbours due to its remote location, and no objections to the proposal have been received. And as such, the application is recommended for approval.
Right, thank you. Have we got any questions? Yes, absolutely.
The sound that you hear is my mind boggling. Can you just confirm that this weight involved is 315 tons?
Yeah, councillor.
But just curious about the engineering and scientific principles. How long does it take for the weight to get from the top of this 1,000-metre shaft to the bottom? Yes.
I'm,
How long does it take to produce the right amount of weight?
I'm advised by the agent that this is variable, but typically the cycle would be about 3 minutes. That may be the case.
Yeah, councillor.
I just want to confirm, sorry, I'm a bit like my colleagues. I'm struggling to comprehend some of this stuff because it's very new. But we're not drilling a shaft. The shaft is already existing to the right level and all of that kind of thing.
No, the shaft will be constructed as part of the development. Off the top of my head, I think the shaft will be about 2.5 metres in diameter, 120 metres deep.
So we do want to drill down to
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I don't think there's much drilling on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Right, I think we've done the questions. Right, we have one speaker on this, which is the agent, Mr. Nigel Moore. And you have 3 minutes to speak. If you'd like to press the large button, make sure the red light's on. And you've got 3 minutes, I'll give you a call.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair, and the members of the Planning Committee. My name is Nigel Moore. I'm from a company called Zetland, based in Saltburn, and I'm the agent for a company called Gravitricity, an Edinburgh-based company specialising in a new technology. It's underground storage that can recharge using nothing more than gravity. It can store significant amounts of energy ready for on-demand release in under 1 second. And it's this quick release that is the game changer. Because it will help the folks in National Grid balance the electricity demand to supply much better than they can do at the moment. Put simply, it's a renewable energy source that doesn't need the sun to shine or the wind to blow. It has the generating cloud to meet peak demand, which means we can now simply release waste rather than greenhouse gases to get the energy we need. 12 months ago, my speech would have ended here on technology's green credentials, but regrettably, when we think about energy today, we have to think about security. And again, it's the ability of the technology to balance the grid. It's the game changer. Because it will allow the folks in National Grid to accommodate a much greater contribution from renewable energy sources than it can today. These are homegrown sources that will help the UK cut the code with Russia and any other hostile energy supplier. And thereby, this technology will help protect us against any unplanned shortages or any unwanted price hikes. Put simply, if we can control our energy supply, we can control our energy price, which means we can make energy accessible and affordable for everyone in the UK. In summary, we're at the start of an energy transition. Energy policy now values the security that comes from homegrown sources. And our broadening energy base will increasingly be made up of technologies that are renewable, carbon neutral, and capable of making the UK more resilient to withstand whatever shocks come along in the future. The Napton proposal ticks all 3 of these boxes. It's been funded by the Government Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy to get this far, and they're ready to invest further, but it will count for nothing without your support. Therefore, I hope our early engagement with the local community, our early engagement with your planners, and the absence of any objection from neighbour or statutory consultation demonstrates the sufficient good faith to warrant your trust now and in the future should you approve this proposal.
Right, thank you. Well, I don't think we have a local member. I wonder if I should invite Councillor Nixon. But no, Councillor Andrews.
I didn't think it was that much.
Right, okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, before saying any words, I'm going to support this straight from the off. But let me explain why. Of course, the technology isn't really new. It's just a new application of a bigger scale, a hell of a scale. But to George Armstrong's hydraulic cranes in various harbours around the world, and any wall and long case clock has had for a long time. The energy is only as green as the greenness of the energy that's used to switch it up. But perfect support the idea that this is a quick release into a green release into the grid at peak times when you need emergency, presumably emergency electricity input to the grid. I can't help but think that should anything go, God forbid, anything go wrong with the winchgear, 315 tons of weight dropping 100 meters will cause a tremor effect that could only be in the dreams of the anti-fracking mob. However, long said, coming around to the fact that I think it's a splendid thing that we can support wholeheartedly, and I thoroughly recommend the project for
Thank you, councillor Andrew.
Yeah, yes, Chair, I entirely agree. I assume that this is going to solve the problem of the kettle that is put on in Coronation Street gets to the end of it.
Indeed.
3 days into it.
Right, councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it Friday. I think you were trying to refer to the FA Cup half time a year ago. Just for some context on this, they tested this in Glasgow with on the docks. We were on the docks around there, Glasgow. So they've done the small test already. This is the second phase of the testing, and flexibility is really important. We have this commitment to do climate change, unfortunately, climate generation, we've restricted and stayed free. So flexibility that is vital. I know some of the ideas for this is defining areas like so I think that was part of the original concept of the knowledge interesting. That's also this is an alternative to tracking of that. To me, the ingenuity is brilliant. Batteries, the argument about minerals, that sort of thing, require any minerals such that we still need batteries, we still need solar, we still need everything else. This does the box that does answer a lot of the arguments that are being put against other things in the batteries. They are possibly against the world. And I hope that goes by there on the front end of technology.
I'll take that as councillor Andrew. Anybody else wishing to speak on this one? Right, well, just as a I'm quite pleased to see that we've got the development of another brownfield site here, but for an even more important purpose, and that's energy security. And assuming that this scheme's successful, and I have no doubt it would be, I was going to say what's a pity we no longer have redundant deep wide mine shafts already excavated, where we could have provided significant peak power. But I'm sure there must be the occasional shaft that's still there, albeit properly capped. But this provides essential grid balancing and frequency smoothing. It might sound a bit geeky, but your electricity has to be at 50 hertz, and that's the key thing. And if it doesn't, all your computers and lots of equipment stops working. And this is one of the really key things about something like this, that it balances the supply at 50 hertz. And the fact, as already mentioned, that it very quickly comes into action where other things aren't quite so easy to switch on and off. So yes, thoroughly support this. It's been moved and seconded for approval. We'll go to the vote. As I suspected, that was unanimous. Right, next we have item 13, 22/005552 full Springview held in Pickering. Right. Yeah, hang on.
I'm not sure if it's working. It's probably the point.
Oh yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just take you through the site context first. Hopefully the pointer will be working. So this is the application site here. Barnhorn is for conversion to a holiday let, and that is has a serious planning history concerning it. An objection was received from Kells Head Farm. This is this property here. The second part of the application is to turn this into a self-contained annex for the applicant's family members. This is the original barn, and then there is a sort of cart store, garage store shed that was built as part of the 2010 planning application on the site. A further two objections were received. One was from Little Orchard, which is this property here, and the other one is from property known as Bruce Manor. Now, in relation to those objections, what's been undertaken is that at the second floor level of the annex conversion, a tinted window treatment is proposed, and that was agreed as part of the 2010 conversion scheme, which was to have that as a holiday let. So that is conditioned on the plans. And then the second issue relates to the fact that there's an existing opening in the barn door, and that is now proposed to have timber louvers across it and to be non-opening, because this area here is the front garden of Kells Head Farm, and there are effectively key sort of windows for this property that this, if this was glazed, this door would look directly into, but it is now proposed to have a treatment to it, which in view of members would be, view of officers, sorry, would be acceptable. If we can move to the next picture, please. So this is effectively looking northwards. It's the entrance to the site. To the right of the screen is Springview, and to the centre is Farm 1, and to the left is Kells Head Farm. And members may be able to know that there is the door aperture, which is basically close to the return angle with Kells Head Farm. And so that was the doorway, the window that was concerning to that property. Next photo, please. So this is the southern elevation of Farm 2, which would form the annex accommodations part of this proposal. And the access to barn is to the extreme right-hand side of the shop. Next photo, please. And this is to the rear of barn 2. That's the effectively the element of the 2010 provision that's been implemented. Next photo, please. And that's the effectively the boundary treatment between Springview and the neighbouring properties on the eastern side. Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Right. Any questions? I raised this yesterday, but would it be possible to have a basic lighting condition as added in?
Yes, it would. Yes, it's within the conservation area, and there are effectively sensitive receptors surrounding the site. So I think that a condition regarding external lighting would be reasonable. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any more questions? No. Right, I have one speaker on this, which is the applicant, Mr. Martin Stevens. Should know the instructions by now. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Martin. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. My wife Rachel and I moved to Pickering 15 years ago. Now we purchased Springview and its associated outbuildings. I believe the historical vernacular of the local area to be one of the biggest assets. We love our great tourist property and have undertaken the majority of the work to restore it ourselves using traditional methods and techniques. In 2010, we applied for and had approved permission to convert 2 of the barns to holiday accommodation, ensuring a future for the prominent buildings on the western entrance to This work was commenced in 2015. The extension to the north elevation of Barn 2. Unfortunately, in 2018, I was diagnosed with advanced stage 3 lung cancer. So although the extension is completed in line with the original scheme, no further progress has been made. After I completed over 2 years of treatment for my illness, we suffered the loss of Rachel's mother, leaving her father by himself in a remote property in Derbyshire. We have therefore reevaluated our present and future needs for the property and are applying for the change to our original application to convert Barn 2 to an accessible residential area rather than a holiday cottage. This will enable us to, in the short term, care for Rachel's father, who is now on a replacement hip operation. In the medium term, provide income in the form of revenue from the holiday cottage Grant 1, and in the long term, facilitate our own needs in our own cottage. We are of the opinion that the scheme proposed makes for a very flexible property that meets more criteria set out in the local planning strategy than the previously approved application, without detracting from the street theme in Calhead, while still mitigating for any concerns of loss of amenity. Thank you for your consideration.
Right, thank you. Right, well, things